So the next thing we're going to do is use our analysis tool, and we're going to compare this to older data. So if we bring in some faceted data, and I'm going to import a 3MF file, it could be an STL file or OBJ file, and I want to select the older piece of data or a different piece of data, and I want to compare it to this. So I bring it in, and here it is, and it fits terrible. Not a problem. This is faceted, so there are no faces here. I have it set to faces. It's all one big face or thousands of little faces, depending on how you look at it. So what we're going to do, go right back into our polygon modeling. What we want to do is we want to divide these faces up. So we will select this face and all the cylindrical ones and hit them. Now let's get the outside ones too. Because what we really want to analyze is this inside freeform surface. That's what's important at this time. So we divided those faces, and then we're going to divide these planar faces. And what we're doing by dividing them is we're making individual faces, so when we do a selection, we could select just the faces that we want, the faces that we care about. Okay, I believe I have all of them. And now we need to reposition this. So we're going to replace face with mesh, and I want to do cylindrical faces. So I'm going to select these and actually make them cylinders. So now they're cylindrical faces. And that gives us the opportunity to move the data. So if I just simply select the move object and select the data that we want to compare it to, and I want to compare it like origin X and Y, that's an easy way to do it, and I'll select this arc center, and this arc center, essentially it's just 3 points. And then we will do the same over here. We'll select this arc center, and this arc center, and this one, and then we're going to move the original. And there it is. So now we moved it into place. We have the faces divided up nicely. But when we do the analysis and we start getting a lot of data, we could set a filter for see through all. And that will help us to see our data as we select it with the analysis tool. So we're going to go into the analysis tool, and very important, we're going to set a deviation gauge. And we want our filter to be selected to face. And we're going to select the faces that we care about. So we will select the new face, and then we will select the old data. And you could see our graph. Suppose we need to get better information because it is a little bit difficult to see what we're looking at. So we're going to make some changes. We'll set it to 3D, which is what we want. And we could change our sample size, reduce it or increase it. And we can do things like we could turn off the needles or turn on the needles. We could suggest the scale factor, and we could turn off the markers, and we could turn off the color map. So things to make it more able where you can see what you're looking at. And the display values are set to user defined. That's why you're not seeing anything. And what we'll do, we could say all, but there'll be quite a bit. But when you zoom in, you can see how far they are off at the given locations. Or we could kind of reduce it and say intermediate, and we'll get less points so we could see where things are off. And we could do manual, which we'll talk about in a minute. And we could change this. So right now we're seeing just so much. Maybe we want to change this filter here, and we'll change this to 1. So now we can get a little bit better look, and we could see the blue and the red are the places where it's really far off. And we can get a great idea of where our problems are, and if we zoom in, we could see the actual numbers of where it's at certain locations. And again, we could change our filter, as I talked about earlier. Now, what we might want to do is, rather than set it to intermediate, we could say user-defined. And we could start snooping around, and we could say, you know what, I want to know what's going on right here. So I can select these points, and I can see where it's off at certain locations, or maybe I'm concerned about really randomly anywhere. I can see where my surfaces are different from the other copy of the faceted data. And I can also turn it back to intermediate or all, and I could see the maximum distance where things are off. And maybe I'll turn off the preview, and it will give me the maximum numbers, or I could turn that off and put on minimum and get the minimum distances. So that's a little bit about how the deviation gauge works. And if I hit OK, it leaves the deviation gauge on, so I can kind of interrogate it and inspect it and look at it. And like everything with NX, it lives on the tree. So when you create something, you'll find it on the tree, and I could turn it off. And if I right-click here, I can go back to my shading, and there's my data. And if I want to see that again, right now I can see the numbers by clicking here, but I can also right-click and I can go down to the face analysis and turn that right back on. So it's right under shading, right mouse click, and you can turn it on and off at will, and it's on the tree to get the information. So that is how you would compare data from one sample of faceted data or BREP data to another, or mix and match BREP to faceted and compare the data.